you. Oh boy, that sounds official. Okay. Well, maybe we'll get going here so we don't have to keep you any later than is necessary tonight. Thank you all for coming to our Finance and Rates Committee meeting. This is the one time a year that we all get together with the big group. I know we've met in smaller groups with the board members, and those meetings are always, I think, pretty valuable too. But this is the time where we try to rely on the collective wisdom of all of you to tell us whether we're on the right track or not, or to make changes if we need to. So great to see the turnout, and for the folks online, hopefully you can hear us okay. Do we have any indication of that?
We have a thumbs up from Jason.
Thumbs up. All right. Very good. So we'll try to speak as loudly and as clearly as we can so everybody can hear. It's probably going to be hard to hear some of the questions from the room, so we'll repeat those as needed just to make sure everybody online's following. So I think I know all of you. Kyle Rodman, I'm the general manager here at EPUD. A pleasure to be working with this group now for many years, and welcome. We've got a couple new members, so appreciate having you all here with us. And maybe we'll just go around and do a quick bit of intro, unless you had anything else in mind. All right. Why don't you start, Rob?
I'm Rob Roeder. I'm the technology supervisor.
Welcome.
I'm Wendy McKay. I'm the executive assistant.
Hey, Rob.
Austin Hightower, new here, Rodney's son.
Rodney Hightower from Junction City, and I represent the irrigators.
I'm Robert Jackson from Craftwell.
Maybe we should come back to Rob real quick because he snuck in just at the perfect time.
I'm Rob McComey. I represent the Jasper Natron area over here.
Welcome.
George Devine, Cottage Road. Robert Ball, Cottage Road.
Nice.
Barry Smith, Crestwell. I would say it must be West Crestwell. And Robert, you must be East Crestwell. You're going not too much of a line running.
There's a divide on the railroad tracks, right? You're from one side of the tracks or the other.
Mhm.
Let's go back here. I spoke up before he stepped up.
No,
I think
I thought you did, yeah.
I think we got Rob.
I asked, you said no.
Oh, been a day.
Joe Roddy, East Cottage Road.
All right. Welcome, Joe.
Jeff Matthews from up in the Mohawk Valley.
Welcome.
Danny Craig, electrical superintendent at Cottage Grove Warehouse.
All right. Great to have you.
Chair, resident Cottage Grove.
Welcome.
Emily Nelson, represent Junction City.
Kelly Strange, customer service manager.
Mark Raymer, operations manager.
Doug Barrett, system engineer.
I'm Rob Courier, the power resources manager here.
And I'm Sarah Klein, financial officer.
Brought the whole EPA group tonight, so appreciate all them for being here. They've had a long day over at some training with Lane County, and now they're back to spend their night with you. So thanks for what you're doing. Maybe online, let's see, we've got, why don't we start with Roxanne? You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Roxanne Erickson from Mohawk Valley.
Welcome. And Matt? He's waving. All right. Welcome, Matt. Matt's from Pleasant Hill area. And then Jason?
Jason Lansky, broadcasting live from Veneta.
All right.
Hey.
Welcome. And is that it, or do we have anybody else on there?
That's true.
Oh, Irene, are you there? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Still on mute.
All right, still on mute. Can you hear us all right? I think you're on mute, Irene, if you can switch on your end. Okay,
Can you hear me?
there you
There
go.
we go.
Okay. I'm out here in Veneta as well. I just made it home through a traffic jam, so good to be here.
Glad
All
you're
right,
here.
thanks to both of the Veneta folks. You all have the longest commute on our system, so appreciate you dialing in. That makes a big difference. Well, Sarah's got kind of the main spiel here tonight. I'll just introduce everything by saying, this was one of the more difficult budgets that we've had to put together, given some of the cost pressures that we're facing here. So I think that's reflected in the rate increase that you've seen. It's hopefully well explained here in the budget proposal. We're seeing, not just the normal stuff, but this is a year that Bonneville, hit us with some pretty significant rate hikes for the first time in a couple of years. And this particular increase will last us for the next 3 years. So normally Bonneville has 2-year rate cases. This is a bigger increase to get them through the next 3 years. which is when the new Bonneville contracts begin. We just signed our new Bonneville contract actually last week. We were one of the first public power utilities in the region to do that. They encouraged utilities to speed that process up because there is some threat to the federal power that we supply or that we buy from Bonneville right now. So we got that done pretty quickly. We're happy about that. That gives us a lot of certainty moving forward. But you know, they're seeing cost pressure and they're passing that on to customers. And so as the kind of middleman between us, between Bonneville and our customers, we feel like we can absorb some of that, but we certainly have to pass along at least a portion of it. And so you'll see that in the proposal. You know, we've also got some just basic labor inflation. We tried to keep that very minimal this year. We've got basically a cost of living increase of 3.3%. And then a little bit of money in there for, you know, potential wage adjustments later in the year if we run into some type of a market misalignment. So we'll go through what that looks like, but those are kind of the bigger drivers. And the last thing that I would say is, you know, since the ice storm that we had in January of last year, we've just kind of been absorbing that impact through our cash reserves. So we have a big FEMA claim that's out there. You know, we spent about $12 million on storm recovery. We're hoping to get back about 9 million of that. But as you've probably seen in the news, FEMA's not doing so great right now. The whole federal government's a little bit in chaos. And so we're not counting on that money to come back. We hope it does. And if it does, we can shift course. But we have proposed to at least begin the process of replenishing those cash reserves, assuming that we don't get FEMA reimbursement for that storm. So a portion of that rate increase is also meant to start that process of rebuilding cash reserves tonight. So we'll go through all those, but I just wanted to give you the high level of how we got to a 6% rate increase. The other piece that's worth noting is that we are proposing to move the date of the rate increase from what has been January 1st the last couple of years out to April 1st. We've had this conversation at length over the years. What's the right, you know, date to do this? A lot of folks argue that January 1st is, you know, in the height of winter, and so not a great time to be increasing rates on customers. I think there's good arguments to the other side. It does cost us about $800,000, I think, in next year's budget by moving that from January to April. So it's not inconsequential in terms of the level of the rate increase that we're seeing. But there also are ways that we can potentially reduce the rate increase. None of them are perfect. They all have trade-offs. And we'll discuss those. But we did go through with our board last week and we said, well, if you don't want 6%, if you want to, you know, shave something off of that, there are some tools that we can use to try to do that. We think from the staff side that 6% is probably the right number, given what we're seeing from Bonneville and what we're going to need in the years to come. But there's very reasonable arguments to look at something different there as well. So we want to dig into that with you tonight. I think our board's especially interested in hearing your perspective on the timing and whether the trade-off is worth it to move that out to April. We've got some thoughts, I think, from the customer side too, that Kelly can share. But there's some good discussion to be had here. So we want to hear from you, and please don't hesitate to share your thoughts as we go through the entire thing. Any questions right off the bat before we get going? Okay, don't be shy to speak up. It's a big room, but we're very friendly. So, all right, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Do we do this first?
Oh, I guess we should, yeah.
Okay.
So we have to do the awkward thing where we pick a chairperson, and that chairperson gets to, it's a tremendous job. You get to come to a board meeting, you get to present the recommendation from the committee, and there's free water and coffee and maybe some cookies.
You get to work with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we help write a recommendation. So we try to make it as easy on the chair as possible by just working with the chairperson to try to capture the essence of what happened in the meeting, and then work back and forth with edits just to make sure everything is captured. And then the chairperson comes to the October 21st board meeting.
Yep.
To present that committee recommendation to the board. So it's one more commitment after this meeting as well.
And we think about 5 o'clock is the time we're shooting for at that meeting. So you need to be available about 5 o'clock on the 21st to present the recommendation. So.
How many people are in that meeting?
There's at least 5 board members and myself and Wendy. and usually some staff. come. So it's not a
I'm
big,
usually there.
yeah, it's not.
So that's cool.
Nominate Carrie Fisher.
Hey, now, I think this,
Last year, I did it the year before.
it sounds like, you're being selected by acclamation here, Carrie.
Who you do it? If we vote for it.
What was the date?
Next Tuesday.
October 21st.
Today.
I'll do it if he doesn't want it.
Well, I thought about it since I've been here for 12, 13 years.
Yes.
And I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay. That'd be nice. Well, great.
Your turn.
And
Tell you what, Terry, if you can't make it, I'll fill in for you, okay? You, just let me know.
We've got,
that's three. That's great. Well, and of course, anybody's welcome to come to any board meeting, but especially this one, if other members want to come and support Carrie, you're more than, or you don't have to come either, yeah. I think you can just say, yeah, anybody opposed to Carrie, I suppose would be a good way to do it.
Pull my wallet out.
Oh, I oppose it.
Oh, boy.
Just on.
This got very interesting. Yeah. I think that's formal enough if y'all are okay, except for Rob are okay with Carrie. But thank you. Thank you, Alex and Rob, for volunteering. I appreciate that, though.
Yeah.
All right.
all right. So with that, let's just jump right into the 2026 budget proposal. Did you want to talk about this one
I
first?
think I pretty well covered this. We tried to break down the drivers of the rate increase. So how do we get to 6%? These are rough categories. You can see the relative impact of the Bonneville increase is about 2 of the 6%. And adding percentages is dangerous. So I'm trying to just give you some directional ideas on what this looks like. So Bonneville powered transmission cost is roughly 2% of the 6%. Labor changes, primarily the COLA, is 1.5% of the 6. Non-labor changes are about 1%. We tried to really keep those pretty minimal. There's a couple things that we want to invest in, including a new inspection program that's going to probably be contractor dollars that we need to beef up. We have for a very long time gotten by just doing inspections sort of through our existing processes, and we want to have a new separate process that's dedicated to doing inspections across the system. So that's going to cost some money. That shows up as non-labor cost, and that's the bigger driver there. And then finally, the cash reserve contribution, about 1.5% of the 6, again, is to start making some progress to rebuild cash reserves. I think that's about about $500,000, 600,000 is what that would do to help get us to a better spot there. Not that we're in dire straits from an operating cash perspective, but we do want to make some progress to get that number back.
Second concern with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's what you hear. Good.
The cash reserve,
Yes, sir.
in the darkest days of with the snowstorm in 2019, the ice storm.
Yep.
In early 2024, EPUD operated really well with his cash reserve, even below the 150
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
That you're trying to meet with Moody's.
Yep.
Standards. But you've also got a $40 million loan that you took out this year.
Yep.
And when you factor that in with your 126 days
Yep.
cash reserve, you got 281 days.
Yeah.
And then you got 201 days the following year. I just have a problem
Sure.
raising rates to put more money in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you've already got it.
Yeah.
With that.
That's a very reasonable take on things. You know, the respectful response would be that money is exclusively for capital work. So the $40 million was earmarked just to make system improvements. So we didn't go out and borrow that money to help pay for operations. Now, when push comes to shove, if we have another storm, yes, we can tap into that if we absolutely have to. But we try to separate the cash reserve numbers from operations and capital work that we want to do. You're right that we can probably get by just fine where we're at. We're about 120 days, something like that neighborhood in terms of operating cash. when we went out to Moody's this year, they definitely asked that question on what's your plan to get back up to 150? And so we're trying to be responsive to that, but you know, if the rate increase is too much and we want to, you know, shave some off, that would be the first place we would go. We could certainly look to run something closer to maybe a 5% rate increase if we keep it in April, and just accept that the cash reserve level we have today is okay. It also potentially leaves us some time to see if FEMA does work out. We're assuming it doesn't, but there's always a chance it could come in. And at that point, maybe we don't need as much cash. Those are great points.
So I have a
Sorry.
comment along the same lines, and we have been talking, we gained up.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're prepared.
So I've had the privilege to serve on several boards. And the biggest one was Peace Health,
Oh, good.
10 years. We had a six-figure, $300+ million reserve.
Yeah.
Never touched it.
Yeah.
I don't know who Mr. Moody is. I don't have a personal relationship with him. But who the hell sets these standards?
Well,
And maybe some businesses are more apt to need it than
Yeah.
others.
yeah,
But we've never used it.
Yeah.
Peace Health never used it, and that's a ton of money sitting there drawing interest when they could be doing something else.
that's the argument against it. That's your money, right? That's customer money that we're tying up and not using.
We should think about that in our own, board, and
Yep.
whether it affects Moody's rating or not.
I think that's a great argument. Great argument. Yeah, Joe.
I did not go into conspiracies to, talk the opposite, that I thought I heard you earlier.
Public
today-
employee.
Yeah. Well, under 35 days. I swore I heard you say earlier that if we did the rate increase January 1st, you'd make $800,000 more.
In 2026, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
If they moved it to the first day.
Yeah.
January instead of April.
that's right.
So your cash reserve is only you're projecting around 600,000.
It would raise that extra amount. If you start the rate increase April 1st, we would generate from doing a full 6%, we would generate about $600,000 to go toward cash reserves.
If you did April 1st. not-
If we did April 1st, yeah.
If you did January 1st, you would make $800,000 more of charges.
We would, or I think,
Offset that.
Yeah.
By 200,000 to the plus.
yes, I think the argument for moving it to January would be to do a lower rate increase. That's the conversation we've been
That's
having.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah,
That.
yeah.
You would be, if just doing the quick math there, like
Yep,
almost 1/4 instead of 1.5.
yeah, yeah,
Less.
yeah,
I mean, that would be your offset right there.
Yeah.
Is if you moved it to January.
yeah.
And then over time, you know.
Yeah, and we've got some of those scenarios queued up to show you all, you know, we'll go through a couple that if we moved it to January, here's what it looked like. If we kept it in April and we just wanted to shave off a percentage point, what would that look like? And we'll show you.
Like I said, I'm not coach for these guys. I believe you need to have a cash reserve so that when we do have a next ice storm.
Yep.
snowstorm,
Yeah.
Where you can't get transformer or whatever it's gonna be,
Yeah.
that you can because you have the money to do it.
There were a few sleepless nights for me after the storm as the money's just headed out the door and,
But I think it's an important point. We are flush with cash right now because we just did the borrowing. That money though, really, it has to go to capital work. There's a covenant that says you can only spend this on capital improvements.
But if I recall, all of the poles and cables, wires that you had to replace for the ice storm came from that borrowed money.
For capital purposes.
Yeah,
And that was capital purchase.
that's right.
Really, you were using that for the right purpose.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But let's say we hadn't done that borrow and we had to rely exclusively on operating funds. That would have been a much different story. Yeah, in some sense, we got, you know, the timing was fortunate because we had done that in 2021. We still had $30 million in the bank from that 2021 borrowing. A similar story would probably play out, you know, since we just borrowed if it happened again next year. But a bigger question that we'll also talk about is what is our long-term capital funding strategy? You know, is it appropriate to be borrowing every 4 to 5 years to you know, continue to do capital work? Maybe. But at some point, do we also want to talk about dialing that down and maybe building up some reserves just for operations? I think there's good arguments on both sides. But you all shared a very important perspective. I want that to be out here tonight, and I appreciate what Joe said also. We're not here telling you we got to get to 150 and we got to do this 6% rate increase. We want to hear your thoughts on it, and I think that will directly influence what the board ends up doing here.
The 150 is set by the board, correct?
It's a board parameter based on industry benchmarking. So when we go to the credit agencies like Moody's, they look for 150 and they ask, why aren't you there if you're not? We were able to tell that story to them this year because we said, well, we just went through this, monumental ice storm and all of our funding went to that. That's why our cash is down. And then they just wanted to hear, well, what's the plan to get back to that level?
So the 150 is set by the board, but Mr. Moody would, if the board set it lower, Mr. Moody would say, yeah.
They may not give us the same credit rating, right? So we got a very favorable rating. It was actually an upgrade from one of them, and it was the same from another one. But we have an investment grade rating. It allows us to borrow at very low rates. We borrowed at just over 4.5% this last go around. If you go back to a 120 type range, you're probably a little less than that. That just means a higher interest rate if you ever have to borrow in the future.
I think it's good steward your money to have the reserves. I really do.
Okay. Well, thank you for all that. Appreciate you guys thinking about it ahead of time and bringing that. We'll continue to go down that road. All right.
All right. So taking a peek at the operating budget. So these charts are just present kind of a nice overall picture of comparing our 2025 projections to our 2026 proposed budget. But let's dig into the detail a little bit more. Let's see, I'm gonna move this out of the way. All right, so retail revenue, there's quite a bit going on here behind the scenes with residential, commercial, and industrial. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me start with industrial. So we've got six industrial customers and six customers in our industrial class. Thank you for being here, Weyerhaeuser, our biggest industrial customer. We've had a couple of conversations with a few of them that shows maybe a little headwinds next year. So we're being real conservative with that group. So taking them down a little bit. Commercial staying really flat, still pretty good growth to kind of in that area. But then on the residential side, we saw some really weird weather patterns this year in the spring, kind of really warm spring. And so it really depressed our 2025 sales for residential. So what we're seeing is just kind of a return to normal a little bit next year, we hope, but also building a little conservatism in the residential side. We've got a lot of potential subdivisions that are out in Junction City area, right? But the kind of the connection pace has slowed a little bit on those, where they're still out there. There's still a lot of potential, but the pace of development has slowed a little bit. So we're pulling down like the number of actual connects in our residential sector as well. So yeah, a lot going on. But overall, I think sales we expect them to be up. Maybe I think it was like 0.5% compared to our 2025 projections.
Rob, excuse me, there's another development out in Cottage Grove of, there were 61 acres of which I think 40 some acres are gonna be allocated to building homes.
Yeah.
Is that in your district?
Is that what Cleveland Street?
It's off Cleveland?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's us.
That's us. Yeah, we've got a lot of those that are kind of scattered all over. But I think they're not coming on as quickly as we anticipated.
Yeah, it'll be a little slow.
Slow.
It was
They were doing a road widening and we actually had them get the pipe underneath the road before they did all their finish work. So we've got 3-phase pipe on the other side of the road and getting prepared for that.
On Cleveland.
On Cleveland.
Yeah.
And then we kind of stubbed it off and we got a little plan going on, because we hear that in a 20-year plan, there might be a bridge going across we gotta just try to get set up and try not to get real myopic and those kind of things.
Thank you. All right, wholesale revenue. So this is one of the categories where you're going to see a very significant change due to Emerald's Bonneville product switch. So we've changed from being a slice customer to being a load following customer. And as a matter of fact, just 2 weeks ago today is when that change actually took place. So 2026 will be our first full year as a load following customer. So in essence, this wholesale revenue line item almost goes away. The only real thing left in there is the White Creek Wind contract that we receive the output and resell that output. So that revenue will still be in this wholesale revenue category. To really get the full picture of what's going on with the product switch, kind of combined with the Bonneville rate increases that we're expecting, you really need to look at wholesale revenue combined with power costs and transmission costs down below. So this really negative impact on revenue is partially offset by a positive impact on the cost side of things. So we'll get a little bit more into that. So that's just a little spoiler. The rate increase revenue, 2.4 million is what is projected if we did move forward with the 6% in April in 2026. And once again, we have a few other options we can talk about when we get to the multi-year forecast and hear more of your feedback. All right, so that brings us to a total revenue in the proposed budget of almost 62 million. That's up about 3% over our projections in 2025. By the way, our projections are based on our second quarter review throughout this budget proposal. We are just barely starting on the Q3 review, so more information will be available soon. All right, so back to power and transmission costs. So like I said, this category really should be netted with the wholesale revenue category to get the full picture. So just this line item alone, things look better. But this line item does contain the Bonneville rate increases of 10% on the power side and 20% on the transmission side. You want to talk any more about that?
Just that this is going to be a tough year to compare because of the product change happening at the same time we have the rate increase. So it all kind of gets mixed up, but the real thing to look at is this line plus the wholesale revenue line is up about $800,000. And that's the rate pressure that we're seeing from the Bonneville side.
Well said. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to gross margin, which is projected to be up or proposed to be up about 2.6 million as compared to 2026 projections or 2025 projections. Sorry, getting my years mixed up. All right, customer support and system maintenance costs are always a focus on the O&M side of things. So we're expecting those categories to be up about 1 million in the projected 2026 budget as compared to 2025. Most of that is labor on the labor cost side. And then, as Kyle mentioned previously, there's a new inspections program. There's also a new membership proposed in there that is geared towards Bonneville load following members that would be valuable to us as a new load follower. And then also some consulting services to help us refresh our strategic plan that's getting a little outdated since 2020. And that brings us to operating margin, which is proposed to be 1.7 million more than projected in 2025. And it is a great measure of how efficiently our operations are running. Debt service might be another one that has a few questions this year since we did implement a new borrowing of $40 million in 2025. And so the 2026 proposed budget includes the new debt service payment based on the final schedules. So that's projected to go up in the proposed budget. 2026 includes the final debt payments for the 2013 refunding, which we're so excited about. So excited to see that one go away. That might lead to a question about what's going to happen in 2027. Are we going to see a drop off? The answer is no. And that's because of the choices we made when we were structuring the new 2025 debt. The board likes the idea of keeping things kind of flat. So that debt was structured to be layered around our existing debt. So 5 million will kind of be the new number going forward. And then other expenses, a bit of an increase there. proposed due to what we're expecting to see in property taxes this year. Statement should be out for all of us any day now, so that should be
They're
fun.
not going down?
They're not going down. We're not expecting that, no. So that brings us to net income. The proposed budget includes 5 million in net income. So about a $500,000 more than we're projecting for 2025. That could change a little bit depending on discussions about rate increases and ultimately what the board decides with that.
Special district in property practice.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
On our,
District.
Always have, yeah.
yep, always have poles, wires, headquarters. Yep.
For this property here.
Oh,
Yeah, we do.
All the land and building.
a special.
Yeah, there's no exemption. That's the one type of tax we do pay. We don't pay most, but yeah.
Oh. Employer taxes too.
Okay, I shouldn't have said that. We don't pay income tax.
That's the one we don't. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the capital side of things. Once again, this kind of nice summary view for you to see. So for 2025, we're projecting to spend about 15.7 million. That'll be funded in part by borrowed funds, customer contributions, and then we're actually looking at a slight increase in 2025 in cash reserves, and then followed potentially by another slight increase in 2026, depending on what happens with the rate increase. We'll talk quite a bit more about the spending in the following pages. We'll break that down into category for you, and Mark and Doug are here to potentially talk about a few of the projects. So we'll just keep going. So major system upgrades. This is the largest category that we consider when using the borrowed funds that we just brought in. So everything in this category is eligible for those funds to be used towards. Some stuff below this line is as well, but you can count on everything in this category being eligible. Let's see, so if we want to spend a little bit of time in this category and maybe just talk a little bit about some of the significant projects in this category. Doug, do you want to talk a little bit about substation? And here's the cheat sheet.
Okay, so substations, we have really kind of two major projects. One, we're going to be wrapping up next year. And that is replacing an existing substation transformer. It's on order, it's under construction. And so that will be received next year. And then the other project we're going to be beginning is expanding one of our existing substations out in the Bonita area by adding a new distribution bay. So we take our transmission at 1 voltage, we step it down to a lower voltage that we then take out to the neighborhoods to deliver to the homes and businesses. So those are the two big substation projects we have going on next year. Again, that one we're wrapping up by replacing an existing transformer that's way past end of life. And the other will be a multi-year project that will start next year.
Those substation transformers are about $1.5 million, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, well, this one, I think was 1.6-ish.
They're big money.
Yeah. And,
Going up.
700 some thousand.
yeah, it's amazing how much they've gone up in price and lead time. It was a 1.5 years out to get one.
Year and a half.
Yeah, they're big custom built.
We bought almost the exact same. So this one, 1.5 years, $1.456 million, somewhere in that range. We bought almost the exact same unit, only it was a little more complicated back in 2018. It's $600,000 and we got it in 34 weeks. Yeah.
Almost 3 times the money.
Times have changed.
Yep.
But then you guys talk about you have somebody in Eastern Washington building for you.
So the one that we're having built is actually in Pocatello. This will be the 3rd transformer we purchased from them. In Washington, and also I think is it in Washington or Oregon where we're sending our.
Spokane, right?
Washington, Spokane area, yeah.
So we're sending our distribution pod transformers to be rebuilt. rather than just selling them for scrap and buying new ones, we're finding that for a lot of them that only need minor repairs, it makes more sense to have them repaired.
As long as it's not leaking or had some catastrophic failure to it. If they fail, they're done. But we'll pull them out of the air, rebushing them, they get new gaskets, repainted. Old oil gets taken out, mineral oil gets put back in, they're tested, make sure they're below the 2 parts per million and all that sort of stuff, but it's probably half the money. And so we're taking advantage of that anytime we can. Plus Core Steel, somewhere in the tune of 600 metric tons behind production. So we're trying to be good stewards of that.
So the mineral oil is going back into it?
Yes, I believe the stuff we use now, maybe one better than that, but I think you could probably cook a turkey in it and eat it and you'd be fine. New stuff, yeah,
I've taken some of those out, mostly there.
yeah,
We had to go through a lot of market barrels and everything.
yeah.
Well, the new transformers we're purchasing, it's not a mineral-based oil that we get in it. It's actually a vegetable-based
Yeah.
oil, grain-based.
West MLS. Just kidding. With that said, one of the things Doug and I have been working together forever, 27 years ago or so. So one of the things that happened this last year or so was we finished all our transmission rebuild. It's all 115. It used to be 69,000. So really proud of that. All re-insulated, did some big jobs there. Gives us some more flexibility for switching, things like that help out. Some of these things you see here, the upgrades on cable replacements. I've been here long enough to remember I would take the underground truck out probably twice a week, and if it wasn't me, it was somebody else on underground outages, a lot of late 70s cable is direct buried, blowing up all the time. So there were many years we had, $100,000, $150,000 in our budget to replace cable. So you'd hold on to that for anything catastrophic. So now we're really doing a good job of, you'll see the mobile home park stuff there. That's all direct buried. It's a mess. And you go in and you put all new conduit in the ground. So if anything ever happens, somebody digs into you or whatever, you pull it out, put new stuff in, and it's basically how it should have been done and how we do it now. We put everything in conduit. We don't do direct buried anymore. So a lot of T-splices out there on secondary. So you'll have a whole row of trailers or whatever, and if the one in the front, the T-splice goes bad, everybody on the whole end is out, and you're digging 6-8 feet deep sometimes because of the fill. So those kind of things. Now I don't know if I can get the dang underground truck started. The battery might be dead in it. So we're really moving the needle as far as those kind of things that happen. So underground's a great thing to have, right? But doing it right is the key. So we're spending lots of good money on that, and so we want to go through mobile home parks. The other thing we used to do in the past was we just replaced the primary cable and then not do the secondary. And you need to do a secondary also. Secondaries are outages and they cost just as much labor to fix one or two people. And if you can do it proactively, you're money ahead. So just some of the other stuff that we're dealing with. We did the Coburg bottom loop stuff. Give you an idea how these things help out in storms. We finished the Coburg Road reconductor 2 summers ago, was it? I think, yeah. And in the 19 storm, we had 26 spans of wire down, not a tree hit it. Just ice built up on it. It's number 6 copper. It gave way, went 26 spans of wire down, about 6 arms are looking. And in this storm, that was even bigger than that. We had 1 anchor pulled under a heavy load of ice. We should have replaced the anchor. We thought the anchor was good and it wasn't. That was it. And everybody's back in power, and it proves that a well-built overhead line is still a very feasible way to do things and much less expensive. So
We get asked that question a lot, is why don't you underground everything? And there's just some places where it's not appropriate if you've got.
Was the string of power poles that run by the way station going out to Mohawk Valley now better built?
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, those were probably class 4 poles originally.
Yeah.
And the class of 4 poles are obviously, we used class 2 poles for everything. Perfect example of that right out here at Natron, it was so funny and made me feel good, was, right up next to Sub. That was one of our only feeders that stayed up in that terrible night. And that there's not a pole out of place, good anchors, class 2 poles, big wire, and it withstood the storm. So, and it was kind of in the apex of the storm. So, just shows that underground's 4 times or so, wouldn't you say? About 4 times the amount of money?
No, in some cases, much more than that.
Yeah.
For the big
so-
stuff.
Yeah, so it's just amazing. You can,
It's another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
Right?
and there's places it's super appropriate to do. And there's other places, it's like, you know what, you can get away with good, well-built overhead lines. So that's what we're doing. We're in a real active program right now of as stakers and look at jobs and they get a test and treat pole that's rotten. I'm asking them to look both ways and let's get rid of some old copper wire. You know, it's been around for 40, 50, 60 years. It's outlived its usefulness. And we put up Acer wire, which is aluminum conductor steel reinforced. It's got a steel core in the middle, very, very resilient. And so, yeah, we've been doing that. I think we're, as of the first part of this year, over 30,000 feet replaced. So that's pretty proud of that.
So you pretty much answered my question, but when you're talking about cables, and you went up onto the lines, all those coppers, but everything that's going underground, is that still copper?
No, sir.
It's all aluminum.
It's all aluminum, yeah.
The neutral is copper on the underground,
Mhm.
but everything else is aluminum.
Yeah, I was just at Jerry's the other day and I couldn't make a piece of finished copper. Man,
Yeah,
who uses that stuff anymore?
I know, exactly.
I mean, with the other people that put their lines up on your poles, like Spectrum, Bastion.
Well, it's a constant battle. I mean, they're out there expanding right now. And so they've got a lot of folks on their side from the regulatory, the PUC that kind of monitors what they're doing. They're pushing hard to get broadband out to as many people as quickly as you can. And so we try to enforce standards, but it's difficult. It's difficult when you got folks out there that just their only priority is to do it quickly. And so we found during the ice storm that was a major cause of a lot of the damage that we saw was faulty attachments to our poles. We're doing our best. We've got new staff. We've got new processes that I think are doing a better job, but it's a constant whack-a-mole situation.
Do you get income from those companies?
Oh, yeah.
that are using poles?
I mean, it's supposed to cover our costs, whether it actually does. We're restricted on how much we can charge them for attachments. So it probably doesn't go nearly far enough, but we do what we can.
Mhm.
Yeah, a joint use person that we hired doing a really great job, got a new process and a plan together to hold them accountable. Trying to make them on our process and when they do an attachment, but it's just the Wild West. I mean, these guys are getting hundreds of millions of dollars to put broadband into rural America and it's kind of crazy. If you can get on your pole, it's kind of like squatters' rights. But now once you get on your pole and you can't,
He's not
trust me,
wrong.
I could call a lineman in tonight and he would probably do it for free and go cut all the crap down. So that's a whole nother. Yeah. You're right. Probably a bold statement, but no, I mean, some of the other things you're doing too is, you know, so I talked a little bit about overhead, but overhead underground conversion. So there are places that really make sense. So one of them that comes to mind here is the Taylor Butte. It's off-road. I think PP is on, has their 115 on top and it's just off-road. It's a terrible place to kind of keep up in storms. It always gets hammered. So we're gonna be getting after that in 2026, undergrounding a ton of that. And we just kind of pick away at that kind of stuff. And over time, where it makes sense, you know, where a Coburg Road is, you can keep the trees away. You actually do your trimming to where the trees start to grow away from the line. Now you're just subject to car hit poles, but people hit our underground transformers too. So, you know, they got magnets on them. Linemen, I know I used to put little magnets on them, so to make a little overtime. But yeah, just things like that. Ewing Road, there's some Upper Marcola Valley stuff. So we kind of spot it all over, you know. So that's where some of that stuff.
We've got a multi-year, like 5-year plan with all these projects on it, and we try to space it out as best we can to, you know, hit all the districts, all the sub-districts, but also, you know, not focus everything on undergrounding, for instance, because there's a lot of good overhead jobs that we could do also.
So when it comes to car accidents, with transformers, is insurance money that you get reimbursed with, or we got those set there?
Sometimes.
Yeah, if you can catch them.
Sometimes, if they have insurance.
If they have insurance, yeah.
A lot of times they don't, yeah. I just went to court like a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't have insurance and they were protesting. They said our charges were too high and it was, it hit our pole on New Year's Day, I think,
So, yeah,
and in the middle of the night. So we had to dispatch a couple crews. That's pretty expensive. You're on, you're on double time on a holiday. So yeah, it was expensive. But
Plus they had to go back because the meter base was torn up, another service pole. You know, it wasn't just a one and done. Some of them can get done through, 4, 5, 6 hours, and some of these are like, you can't get a hole down, or you're waiting for locates and it's 10 hours, so it's like. You should have paid attention when you were driving, I guess is the.
For a non-insured person.
What's that?
Can you get an insurance for a non-insured person?
Oh, I don't know if we ever looked at that. I don't know if there's so much liability out there. It'd be really tough.
Well, always see.
Yeah,
For us to insure our entire system,
yeah,
cost prohibitive.
yeah.
So it's
Thanks, Mark and Doug, for that overview.
Yeah, thank you. All right, the other categories below major system upgrades are much smaller, so there's restoration. Other capital includes, basically like materials that we're procuring for jobs that'll be in the future, our fleet, a few other smaller things. And then, of course, customer work, which then brings us to our total, which again, most of it is major system upgrades, and most of that will be covered by borrowed funds.
If I'm reading the text correctly, the customer work is pretty much a blow through. The customer is out paying money. So
Yeah.
Correct.
it's in the budget because that's.
Yep.
How much we anticipate customers are gonna want.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, which is kind of a wild card. I was looking just early on at some Q3 review stuff, and it's one of the categories I really like to look at. We've already over collected what we were projecting for 2025. So, that category is up this year. We collected some FEMA money, and that all goes into that category. So there can be some timing issues, but. All right, so speaking of funding our major capital upgrades, here's a look at our borrowed funds. So on the top chart, you can see our 2021 borrowed funds and how those have been closed out. So our starting balance in 2021 is now currently down to 0 with the final transfer for those funds happening earlier this year related to work done last year. We expect kind of a similar trajectory with the brand new 2025 borrowed funds, with those being depleted by the year 2029 or so. And then here's a look at our total debt to total assets. So we ended 2024 at 17%. With the new borrowing in 2025, we're projecting to be at 30% at the end of this year. That will start to decline after this year as we continue to make our regularly scheduled debt service payments. And then the forecast materials that we're going to focus on include a new borrowing out in 2029. That's really far out there. We have a long time to talk about that, and also a lot of work to do on the capital planning side of things, and kind of trying to right size that capital program. So this is just for the purposes of forecasting right now.
How many years will the 2025 debt be amortized over?
20 years.
20 years. Yeah, our board looked at 20 or 25 and they settled on 20. So it's a little higher payment, but you save a lot on, I think it was about $11 million or something.
Yeah,
You don't have a good payment to do, do you?
No, not on this one. We do on the other one.
the 2021 we do.
Yeah,
Yeah, but not on the 2025.
So if you're forecasting having to borrow money again 5 years, 4 years, why wouldn't you get that $800,000 at the beginning of January?
so, well, that's.
Drop the button for the big
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
Just leave money on the table.
Well, again, yeah, trying to separate capital from operations. This would be exclusively borrowing for capital work as opposed to having operating cash. That also, 2029 is far from a given. That's just a projection to say, let's have a scenario out there if we wanted to borrow again. It's a slightly lesser amount. I think it's, yeah.
Why are you leaving $800,000 on the table? I understand it's not capital,
yeah,
but you can sub plan and move.
it's true. Yeah. Yep. Good question. I mean, to your real question, why leave that on the table? It's really that January date versus the April date and the customer impact and messaging that goes along with that.
Well, nobody wants to spend more money, so it's like.
Yeah. I think what happens though is if let's say there's a cold December and all of a sudden bills in January are super high, whether we caused it or not, if they knew we raised rates on January 1st, we're going to get hit with all the brunt of that. We've seen that before. We had an experience with a tiered rate structure many years ago, you might remember. It happened to coincide with a very, very cold winter. And so they hammered us. So that's the risk. And not to say we've done it the last 2 years. It's not insurmountable, but that's the risk.
Maybe you can base your decisions on the farmer's almanac.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a mild winter.
Okay. Well, take that to the bank.
Yeah.
Weather is valuable.
Yeah.
All right, so a slide for you about cash. I feel like we've talked quite a bit about this, but this is kind of based on the scenario, again, the 6% rate increase, April 1. And this is where that would leave us or is projected to leave us. So as you can see in this scenario, cash reserves do begin to increase in these years in focus, which this is the only scenario that we're showing you tonight where operating cash begins to increase. The other scenarios we'll take a look at that you're not going to see the build in cash reserves.
You can see the two numbers collide or they align by the end of this time frame. So 2028, we've spent all the capital money, so now we're just relying on operating cash. That's where it gets a little dicey.
All right, so taking a look at all of the board financial parameters because they're all important. So total debt to total assets, we looked at projecting that to be about 30% at the end of this year with the new borrow. The board parameter is 50% or lower. So we are well below that. Even, as you saw in that a couple slides ago, even if we do another new borrow out in 2029, we project to be below that. So that parameter is looking really great. Debt service coverage ratio, we haven't talked much about tonight, but it is kind of the second one we would be really focusing on in terms of looking at rate increases and managing our operating expenses. We're projecting that to come in at about 260% at the end of 2025. The board parameter is 130% or higher. This one is a little bit more than just a board parameter. It also is one of our bond covenants that we maintain 125% or higher. So a highly important parameter. The 2026 budget proposal has us coming in at about 185%. So some room, but not a ton.
What's the bond parameter, 125?
125, the bond covenant. Operating ratio is really important to look at, just to look at the efficiency of the operating side of things. We always want to make sure that operations are staying in check with revenue. And this number is looking really good. Again, days operating cash on hand, over 150 or 151 days or higher. And the proposal has us coming in at about 126. And then rate stabilization fund, the board parameter is 2.5 million. We increased that back in 2023.
Yep.
From 2.5 to 4 million. The great thing about the rate stabilization fund is it does give us some room if we do see the debt service coverage ratio coming into jeopardy with the rate covenant or the board parameter. We can tap into that rate stabilization and it does have an impact on our revenue. For that calculation.
That you've now gone to a different category of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Where you've got a fixed price for what, 2 years?
That's right.
Why do we need 4 billion in rate stabilization?
It's a great question. It's something we want to do some more analysis on if that's still the right number or not. With Slice, of course, it was extremely volatile and we had to, have additional cash on hand. That may not be the case. I think we'd like to run with this new product for at least a year just to get a sense, because we're still subject to some weather risk.
Yeah, there's still like a risk of really low hydro, and they have to pass on. Like Bonneville, it's not totally fixed, right? There's the possibility of additional charges that are passed on from Bonneville if they have their own financial issues, right? Like we all have to all support them. So there's still that risk in their contracts, but it is a lot less volatile for sure.
Just out of curiosity, who provides the oversight on Bonneville? Is that a federal oversight?
They're part of the Department of Energy.
Department of Energy.
Yeah.
We gotta trust the federal
I
government.
think a few people still work there. I'm not sure though. Nobody's working right now. Actually, Bonneville is working because they're not funded through appropriation, but nobody else.
All right, so we're back to this chart again. Is it locked?
Oh, yeah, sorry. If anybody needs the bathroom, we can show you where it's at.
All right, so rates. Here is a historic look at rates, plus the 2026 proposed rate increase. So you can see that nice gap between 2020 and 2023, our little COVID rate increase break there. And then last 2 years, we've had a 5% rate increase. And again, the proposed 2026 increase. So how do we compare against our neighbors and our predecessor? That's EPUD in the green bars, pretty close to one of our neighbors, and well, all of our neighbors actually. But we like where we are in that chart, whether we do 6% or other amount in 2026. And then if you looked at an EPUD bill compared to our predecessor and their bill for a 1,300 kilowatt hour charge, this chart reflects how much you would save by being an EPUD customer versus our predecessor. So about 15.3 million in savings for our customer base.
Yeah, and that's if you add up all the residential billings we have and apply our rates versus Pacificor rates, just what's the total dollar savings?
It's not just the average, right?
Yeah, so it's a pretty good aggregate view of how much money EPUD's saving for residential customers.
You think there's any life in the future for Cottage Grove?
Well, that little project took a very abrupt turn.
Yeah, that's what
We started talking to Pacificor. I had calls with their CEO and then our attorneys got involved and we made the decision this is not the right time to take it. It was going to be a knockdown, drag out legal fight.
It sounded aggressive.
You didn't want to give up all that income.
Yeah, I still think it makes tons of sense. Just, I guess we are being recorded. It's not the time for us to take that fight on. So that's the decision we had to go down.
No, that's too bad.
Yeah. We'll see if anything changes in the future.
All right, so we'll take a look next at the labor side of the budget. The 2026 proposal proposes that headcount remains flat. So no requested headcount additions in this budget. That doesn't mean we don't have needs, but we're trying to balance rate increases and our needs and all of that fun. So again, a flat headcount for 2026. We've been showing you all these charts for the past few years, comparing our employee counts to several different parameters, including revenue dollars and sales volume. Can't quite see what the top one is. I can't remember, but per 1,000 customers. Thank you. And so we feel like we're in line with those parameters over time. Things look pretty good with our average and where we are projecting to end 2026. So talking about the dollars and cents, the increase in the labor budget with the flat headcount is about 1.2 million overall. About $500,000 of that is the 3.3 cost of living adjustment that Kyle mentioned earlier that is being proposed. And then there's a placeholder of about $200,000 for mid-year market analysis adjustments. So every year we look at job specific or job descriptions compared to what that job description would pay out on the market, and look at doing adjustments there. We are experiencing some medical cost inflation. I know you all are probably really surprised by that. And then the other category is just people that weren't here for the full year or are in our range program.
So my recollection is historically in these books, there was a job specific, usually it was for alignment.
Mhm.
And it was you compared the rate.
Yeah.
The rate pay for ours versus others in the area.
Yeah.
Yes.
Utilities, and that is.
That's a great pickup. Yeah.
Yep,
So
it
we,
is.
we changed the process, that's why. So rather than do COLA and then a market wage adjustment on top of that, which is what you're talking about, our board elected to punt that second part until July of each year. So we'll do a COLA that we feel is enough to keep up with the broader economy. But then as certain positions may become out of alignment, we've got some money reserved to do a mid-year adjustment in July. The timing on that is purposeful because most of the labor relations that happen with union shops happen in the first quarter of the year. And so we'll know a whole lot more about where they end up once that process is complete. And we feel like July is a better time to actually do that analysis.
So is there a placeholder in here for July?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about $160,000. It rounds to 0.2 million on page 29. Yeah.
Yeah. We're happy to share that analysis when the time comes. It's not part of the budget process per se, but if it's interesting, we can certainly share it out there. Our board's been talking a lot about this, actually. It's such a fun topic to bring in there to talk about wage increases. We keep doing it. Yeah, so that's a joke. But we are planning to do that probably in the May-June timeframe. And then if there's any issues with our lineman wage in particular is the one that tends to get out of alignment, we would propose an adjustment at that point. So
You should be committed to staying on top of this.
yeah.
That they're keeping your shop non-union.
It's a big deal. We know that, and we never take that for granted. We're one of two in the area. Most are not. Most are union.
Fall behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
It keeps us very flexible.
Yeah.
Right, you know, we don't like that, don't pick that up, that's my job. It's just like working at home.
Yeah. Unions have their place for, management that deserves it, but we've been able to, I think, really kind of hit the mark for the last 42 years, and we want to keep it that way. So.
It's more than money and wages, it's your relationship that you have.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Management and staff here work hand in glove, and that would change a lot in that scenario. So
So put everything underground, we still need alignment.
What was the question?
how much time do you have?
You know, it's funny you said that. So I remember I had an old foreman that told me when they started putting things underground in the 70s and they were negotiating a contract. Manager said, in 10 years, you guys won't need you linemen. It's all gonna go underground. Well, underground ended up making more money for linemen than because it was installed incorrectly for one.
We've had that same question asked about tree trimmers.
Yeah.
Don't work too hard. You're going to trim yourself out of a job.
Sure. Good luck.
Good luck with our territory.
Yeah.
So what happens when you replace poles and go underground and you've got other people using your poles for
Yeah.
broadband or whatever?
Well, we'll cut it and we'll actually give them the pole. You might see those out there in different places. There's like a mini half pole. That's kind of the process that they can come with us underground too. Sometimes they'll do that, but if they want to stay on the pole, we just turn it over to them.
Yeah, there's a little formula, Robert, that if they want to so if we're single phase, we'll actually tell them, you know what, you pay for half the, because there'd be 2 pipes in the ground, right? But if 3 phase, they'll pay like a third. So we're gonna put 3 pipes in the ground and they can put a 4th one. Kind of makes sense. And we'll ask them, we're excavating, you want to put some money where your mouth is, otherwise you got to deal with the overhead. So a lot of times they'll go underground with us. Yeah, makes sense.
Your comment about just gonna have a pull down Well, I live on a street where you did that,
Okay.
and you have double the now items that you have on a car.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cause you got double wood, right? You got one new
Brand new power pole, and then the shorter
Yeah.
pole you cut down, and now the other
Okay.
you're using.
We call that double wood, and what it is they've been told, like, okay, you need to come and transfer over to the new, well, I've seen it go for 3 years, cause that was,
Longer down Sears Road.
Yeah.
this is crazy.
It's really on,
It's not
yeah.
right with that.
Yeah.
You're asking questions about it.
Well, it's really on their schedule. I mean, we made it available. They just need to come do the work and
We're starting to sanction them. We're trying to do everything we can. Like,
it's really fun because we keep getting the calls, even if it's not our pole any longer. People complain about it.
They find, the Spectrum got the line across HF.
Yeah, right.
So warehouse trucks won't get it.
Well, that was nice. Yeah, Jeff had one of these
Yeah.
communications lines that just hanging too low like they often do. It took out what, half of the valley out there when you pulled it down. It's a real issue and we do the best we can, but we only have one full-time person working on this thing. We've got stakers that are too busy to do that kind of work because they're trying to focus on customer work. So it's a real problem. We do the best we can with it though.
So Mark, everybody got a great laugh, but what I was really searching for is I came out of the big industry, we had electricians. With 3-phase, 4-phase. And I was trying to get the lineman's up here, he's looking at it, since it's up in the air, he gets paid a lot, but when you're down in the. Underground, the cabinets and everything down through there, is that back to electrician with a different rate scale per labor,
yeah, not a different scale.
different license and.
Yeah, so sometimes electrician, I mean, he could speak to it at warehouse, or, you know, they have underground and overhead systems on the other side of their meter, right? And they'll have that, a lot of times they'll contract that out. But with linemen, particularly Northwest and all over the West, linemen do both. They do both underground and overhead. So I mean, I might send a crew out and they.
That's just curious if you split that up.
No, because it has, each role has its different functions and you know, you gotta, learn how to switch out underground, and actually underground is more of a pain in the rear end, to be honest with you. You can't see it, you can't run it out. It's much more dangerous, to be honest with you. It's not tagged properly, so you know, it's harder to, terminate, all kinds of things. So as far as it being easier, no.
All right, so I think, so just one more slide on the COLA. So we really make sure that we are using data to get to the COLA number. So as you can see up here, we use CPI, we use Social Security, and a few other resources in order to see their low end, high end, and then we just take the simple average, and that's our proposed COLA. All right, should we?
Regional utilities is what,
Oh.
but they are going to be doing implementing.
Yeah, but the ones that we hear back from, it's not perfect, that you only hear back from a few, but we try to forecast as best we can. Some of them are union contracts, so they're already set in stone. Tend to be the ones that we rely on.
All right, should we jump into the forecast scenarios here?
Do it.
All righty,
Follow the numbers,
say again.
follow the page numbers.
No.
This guy over here is the only one that's got a printed up piece.
Oh.
I've heard.
We have those available.
Right there.
They're right there on the back.
Yeah, I've been on the book on.
Oh, okay.
Joe, and I go,
George has got them.
it's here.
This is it.
If anybody wants a copy, yeah.
It's not bad.
It's a lot of the same stuff from the book, but it would maybe allow you to follow along, yeah.
I kept looking around.
I can tell you what page in the book too.
This stuff is not in the book though.
Yeah, well, only the first one is actually,
okay.
but. Okay, so this is scenario number 2 from the book, if you're curious, from page 32 in your book. So this is sort of our baseline scenario. It does, once again, include the 6% rate increase in April of 2026. It gets us to the board parameters that we discussed a few slides ago. So what's important to look at here also is to look at the out years. In this scenario, We include a 3% in 27 and then a 5% in 28 and back to 3% in 29. There is a reason for that. Those correspond with when we will be seeing Bonneville rate changes. And then it's also noteworthy to see that the capital program kind of levels off. 2026 is a bit of a bump up year, and then we go down just a little bit. But once again, we do have that as a priority project for 2026 to look at right sizing our capital program, both in terms of how much work we're doing as well as how to fund that program. So the two most noteworthy parameters here, once again, are the debt service coverage ratio and then the operating days cash on hand. And I mentioned earlier when we were looking at days operating cash on hand on the cash reserve slide, that this scenario does show us increasing our days cash on hand at least through 2028. The out years, we don't get too carried away with because they're so far out, but you can see that that is kind of a nice trend out in 27 and 28 with this level of rate increase. So what happens if we want to look at taking that rate increase down just a little bit? So if we look at moving that rate increase to 5% as of April 1, what that does is basically takes away that bump up to cash reserves that the 6% gave us. And so if we just skip right to the bottom and look at days cash on hand, you can see that it would be a little bit lower in 2026. And then again, in the out years, continuing to be a little bit lower for both operating days cash on hand as well as debt service coverage ratio.
And this might be akin to what you all were talking about. If we're satisfied with where cash is at today, this is a plan that we could go with and continue.
So you go out to borrow money and your lenders, obviously, they gave you a good rate this year. Fixed for 20 years.
Yep.
But you have a way above average debt to coverage ratio. Does that offset the need to have 151 days cash on hand?
I think they look at everything. I mean, they have a scorecard, so they'll actually show you how they get to a rating, and it has different categories, and there's just a matrix, and they go through and say, well, you hit this, you didn't hit this. So to some degree, yes, but I will say the days cash seems to loom very large in their minds when we talk about this stuff. We told a pretty good story that, hey, we got hit hard, we're going to build it back up. And so I think if we went back in 5 years and said, well, we're still in the same place, I think we'd probably get docked. That wouldn't be the end of the world. Maybe we pay a little higher interest rate. But I think they're looking for some type of a gradual improvement.
When you say a higher interest rate, how much roughly in a percentage or a fraction of a percent?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell. That process, by the way, is extremely interesting. We'd be happy to talk about it offline.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of 4.5, you're talking 4.7, 4.8, somewhere in that neighborhood, which over 20 years at $40 million, that actually adds up to a lot of money. So it's hard to say, but they're fractions of percentage points at some level. And we could probably get more information on that, Robert, if you're interested, and just kind of say, like, what if we had slightly different credit rating? What would that have translated to this go around and provide that?
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that if you have, other categories that, far and above exceed.
Yeah.
What your board requirements are.
Yeah.
Does that really offset the need to have?
I think it helps. Yeah. I mean, the debt to assets is really helpful. We're not highly leveraged. The debt service coverage is pretty good. That one always makes me nervous because if we ever get close to that one, it's like DEFCON 5, and it's like, no, we can't even approach it, right?
Super
So
important.
I don't like to even talk about that, but I think generally they feel very good about us. The one narrative was just, what's your story for cash? That was what they really asked about. So.
Are current rate increases now being implemented on January 1? I mean,
The last two have been.
Sure.
Yeah, before that, we'd historically done April 1st for the longest time. The reason we went to January is Joe's point that, you know, we were giving up a lot of revenue and the choice in 2024's budget was, do you want a 7% April 1st or do you want a 5% January 1st? At the time, our board said, well, that's a big difference. We're willing to move it to January to get that 2% reduction.
Have you done a scenario where it's 5% beginning January 1?
I think that's coming up, something close to that.
How about 4.5%? So here is 4.5% as of January 1st. So let's see, this scenario would give us the same amount of retail revenue as the 6% January 1 rate increase. So you can see, I think the January 1 rate increase, we ended with debt service coverage of 185 and days operating cash of 126. So for 2026, this scenario would end at the same levels on the board financial parameters. Where you start to see the difference is when you move into the out years because of that compounding effect of the revenue. So you can see that days cash on hand especially kind of levels off, more similar to the 5% in April 1 scenario. So what if we wanted to push this? Oh, yep.
But in the future, if everything is implemented January, you're still gonna have that, if in 2026 and in subsequent years, the rate increases all are moved to January 1, is that what we're seeing here?
Not quite. We assumed that future rate increases are April 1. So only the 2026 rate increase is January 1 in this forecast. We do.
I'm trying to be a little conservative, but also like from a customer perspective, I should let Kelly talk. She's having probably a heart attack over there when we're talking about January. So maybe let her talk about the customer side, if you don't mind.
I think it's hard. I don't necessarily have a recommendation one way or the other, but I think if we're talking like how customers feel, I think to Joe's point, they're never gonna be in favor of rate increases, right? But there are impacts to getting your first January bill and having it have a rate increase on it.
That should be a federal rate bill, right?
It would be a January bill, goes into.
We apply it as the first bill of the year, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Never used it,
Yeah. So we,
Let's talk numbers. What does the average household pay per month for electricity in the winter? $100, $150? And if you're looking at 5%.
Yeah, we have.
Talking $105 instead of $100.
exactly.
That's not.
And one of the things I've learned, George, is I agree with you 100%, but rationality starts to go out the window as soon as you get a high bill.
So
And
customers, I mean, customer service reps, if they were in here, would be agreeing with you. It's perception now. It is, I'm already calling you because I have a high bill. It's always because of rates. How much more? They don't even know what their rate increase is. It was kind of similar. I don't know if those of you who were here when we did the tiered rate experience, you would be surprised at the amount of customers calling and complaining about their bill. And we're trying to explain, but you got a $5 credit. You were the one used less than tier 3 and it did not matter. It was a perception of what we had done, right? So like I said, I mean, honestly, whether we do it in January, April, the one thing I would say from a customer communication is we have historically done April. If we do say this is the 3rd year, we should probably do something different for communication to our customers because we don't have a way to communicate with them until December about a January rate increase because we don't approve the budget
until November.
so for our newsletter and bills and all that, yeah.
Bills, our power lines, it pushes us to communicating about not an ideal topic, which is fine if we do go.
Merry Christmas, here's your rate increase.
Right, if we do go down these roads of January, which I think we can totally do, I just think we have to kind of back up on how that communication starts sounding earlier in our year. So customers have a better perspective.
So, and one of the things I'm thinking of is if we do the January and it's 4.5%, and you're gonna get a customer reaction. But is there a way to explain, well, we could have waited till April, but it would have been 7.
Yeah.
That's a great.
That's right.
Down the road, future years, you're not getting that.
That's true. Yeah. So you don't see improvement
Right.
in this scenario in the outer years. It's because of that. There's some higher risk of maybe a bigger rate increase down the
But
road.
if you're doing it, every year is gonna be April rather than January, doesn't it kind of work out the same? I mean, you're moving it to 4.5 in January and getting the same result as you would have if you've done it in April.
It's $800,000.
I mean,
What happens if you,
it's really a current year impact. That's the thing that we're talking about. So is it enough of a difference that we want to reduce it in the current year, knowing that there will be a longer term effect though? You know, if you're not,
Referencing this survey, how many customers report in that survey? What
the reliability survey was probably 2,000 customers. It was a good response.
So how many?
10%, 23.
23
Well, we need 3,000 meters.
meters. So
So less than 1%.
10%.
Less than 10% response.
Yeah, which we consider very, very good.
Mhm.
It's very hard to get people to respond to anything. And they tell you the folks we work with, at least, 10% is a very high response rate.
A few years, last year, we had talked about rate increases, trying to maintain them at like a 5% every year going.
Yeah.
forward. Because we got into that situation from COVID forward that really put us behind.
Yeah.
But if we did that and moved this rate start out to February, it might be a little more palatable. But why are we forecasting at 3% when we should be, going at 5% if we want to fill up our coffers here and get our.
The real difference is just the Bonneville impact. So
Yeah.
Bonneville's every other year, and we're trying to sort of thread the needle here and not do more than we really think we need.
Yeah.
We could always adjust that though. I mean, if we don't like these cash numbers, of course, we could do every year at 5%, but
I'm with Rob, if you were at 5% and you studied that, within not a short amount of time, you wouldn't have to be doing borrowing.
yeah. And that you guys are getting at a larger issue, which is how we fund the capital program. And should more of that come through rates if we're not going to borrow every few years? Yeah.
And I'm not at all opposed to borrowing. I think that helps even it out between existing customers and future customers. And so forth. But I also think Rob makes a really good point. I think having a more uniform and predictable rate increase is something that is, in the long run, a little easier to solve.
Yeah. But frankly, maybe it's not 5, maybe it's 4 if you kind of even out 3, 5, 3.
Right.
As long as what I'm hearing, as long as it's predictable, that would be a preference.
The other thing too is if you're looking at changing the date of the rate increase, I think February, if you make February the permanent rate increase month going forward, then the customers are gonna look forward to that. They're gonna understand it a little bit better than having to jump all over the calendar, right? But then you still pick up your winter months, all that other stuff that you want to do. But it's not so shocking. You're not getting hit with your December usage in January at the new January rate. Instead, it's that January usage. And then you also achieve that other tier that you're looking at, which is trying to get that additional revenue for the winter months.
Yeah.
A little bit earlier. So I think you can split the hair on that.
That's not a bad idea because it does allow a little more time for communication too, to kill it.
Yeah, especially if you're not approving this budget until late November. Then you pick up that extra time.
Yeah.
I think I would go so far as to say that was not a bad night.
There you go. Much more generous with days than my old.
If you're rating all that and you've got the weather is gonna change all your variables right there.
Good. Yeah. I mean, that's always a risk, right? If we get.
You have what you wanted, you got a bad winter, you didn't know, you put it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you're telling me you're forecasting.
That's
the future weather.
Yeah. This is additional context to the investor-owned utilities just had a bill passed this last go around in the legislature that forbids them from raising rates. I think January through March, so they can only do it April 1st, which is another reason that we sort of said, well, maybe we should look at that. We're not regulated by the PUC. We can choose whatever date we want. I think that was pretty reactive on the part of the legislature to look like they were trying to do something about high bills because those customers are just getting hosed these days. But just that's just some context again, is why we chose April 1st.
Well, in a way, April, it makes sense from the standpoint it's more palatable, as Rob said, because that's when electricity usage is going down.
Yeah,
And so the 5% increase wouldn't be nearly as noticeable.
That's right.
Say, on the bill.
yeah.
At that time.
Much lower risk of a cold month, kind of mixing things up.
And really, you want to implement a rate increase on April, say.
Yeah.
We should move it to April 16th, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, your taxes are down. Very good.
The, you do a lot of informational campaigns about how to reduce your energy use.
Yeah,
And I think that coinciding with the rate increase in April makes sense, because it's like, yeah, I can reduce my energy use in April.
yeah, that's a
In
good point.
January, no, my kid is cold.
Yeah,
It just, I'm representing the customer here.
yeah,
Like it doesn't matter if it's 4.5, 6%. When it's in the winter where it feels less negotiable, if for heat and
Yeah.
power, it is, you're taking a cut in your cost for how the customer feels
Yeah.
about you as an organization.
Yep.
And also there is a staff cost in how many phone calls you're having, how many customer complaints. I'm definitely one of those people who call me like, why is my bill so high?
Yeah.
It didn't change the thermostat at all.
yeah,
And they're like, no, well, it's harder to keep maintained,
right. Those are great points too. Yeah. We always do energy efficiency messaging around these types of things, but that's cold comfort when you just had a $400 bill, right? So it's a balance, and that's the exact reason why we've talked about April 1st is the messaging gets very, very tricky. I like maybe a compromise here that Rob is trying to get to, so we can leave plenty of time to talk through that here at the end.
I think the whole conversation started earlier, way earlier, when Joe was first talking. We were just trying to find out how to get the rate increase down.
Like, well,
As you- Put it in the bank.
well, that's why we're here.
We kept it to April, we just go ahead and reduce the
Yeah.
amount that we're gonna put in the,
Yep, that's a totally legitimate option. If we think April 1st is the right date, and we want to cut it down, we can do 5% and just live with a lower cash level for the time being.
Yeah.
That's fine. Alternatively, if we wanted to look at February or one of those months, we can make some progress on the cash front. So those are the trade-offs to discuss.
So I have one more scenario, and by the way, we as a staff view each of these scenarios as potentially viable. But I'll preface this one saying it is probably our least favorite scenario. And it's a 4% in January 1. You can see that all the parameters look worse, of course.
pretty bold of you to put this out.
I know, well,
I wanted 2%. She wouldn't let me do it.
So, I mean, again, this is a viable scenario. It doesn't make progress on our operating days cash on hand. But it also, we're not losing that much ground. So it's something that we considered, should the committee like to consider that? Although it seems like we kind of have some other forward here.
Flabbergasted, and there's all these scenarios, but what this tells me is you really only need 4%.
It's possible.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, if you don't care about the timing, right. So that April 1st consideration, as you've heard, it just gets complicated. And so
one of the few budget committees I sit on where it's got such a swing, and it's not a big deal on either end for you.
We could live with it. I would say this one is
Well,
not
there's a
super
reason
comfortable,
for it.
right? We need to manage this closely. Debt service coverage of 169 is not where I want to be. And
Yeah, but we shouldn't be kicking the can down the road either.
yeah,
Because we don't know what the
This
weather's
does.
next year even this year.
yeah.
And the more we try to tweak it in one direction or the other, I think, or especially lower that deal there, I think we run a risk of hurting ourselves and having a bigger increase down the road, maybe not next year, but somewhere
Yeah.
in that line.
Definitely. Yeah, I think these demonstrate, decisions being made today and kind of what you might need to do in the future.
Yeah.
I think when you get closer to, the margin there and, then something goes awry and then something,
Unexpected.
I mean, it's bad when you gotta have a rate increase, it's worse when you gotta power out.
Oh, yeah.
Comes out at the end, you can't get it back and forth, your kids are gonna be a whole lot colder than.
Yeah.
If you have to.
Well, we asked that question on the survey that you mentioned, Joe. We asked, what is your tolerance level for outages and how much are you willing to pay to try to prevent them in the future? And most people, I think the vast majority said we're willing to pay something, on the order of $10 to $20 a month, if that means fewer outages. So we're not just going to do that, of course, but that gives you some guardrails to work with here.
Well, I would propose,
I was gonna make a motion.
I'll second it then. Go ahead, make your motion.
5% April 1st.
Second.
Why don't these two sit together?
Yeah, I'd motion to February. If we were gonna start motions on that.
I don't think February, I just don't think February makes as big a difference as April would to the issues that they're talking about. I think February just postpones the pain a few weeks.
Sure.
April's gonna make her a lot happier.
Bring me into it.
So how many phone calls do you normally get from customers complaining about their bills? I mean, how many of them are,
In high bill season,
yeah,
it's probably a majority of the calls my customers.
so what's a number of the majority?
I would have to look it up. We-
8,000, 10,000,
No.
400?
We don't get that high of a call volume.
400, 900?
Busy winter month, January, February, we're probably getting 3,000 calls a month.
Well, the
Right.
bills hit people's bottom on Thursday.
Well.
Still answer the phone. Yeah, sorry about that. Well, we don't have to all agree. We've done things in the past where if part of the group wants to do one thing and part another, we can work with that too. It's always nice to have consensus.
We really should give a good solid recommendation.
I would like to recommend it, if we can come to it.
Are you able to show the numbers for 5% increases spread out across the? Or
Like a more level playing field instead of.
Oh, if we did it every year.
Like a 4.5.
Well, we could continue on with maybe the rate design slides and I can work on that.
There's just a little bit more to get through about the implementation.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Do you
I like
Yeah.
want to take laptops? Let's see here.
If anybody needs a bathroom break, we can do a couple of minutes too.
Is there gonna be another,
Send it over.
decision have to be made between whether the rate increase for the per meter cost versus the.
That's what we're gonna talk about tonight. So Rob's got some materials to share about that, and then are we gonna talk about the rate design?
Yeah.
We typically have this group make a recommendation and then the board will vote on the budget and then the rate increase as two separate resolutions. So. Is everybody doing okay? Need a break or keep pounding away? Okay.
I'm sorry, Rob, just so I'm clear. So you're thinking,
I'm just
Flatten out.
thinking how it would be if it was a 5% increase just all the way through 2029. See how that impacts our funding.
with February 1
Yeah, February 1.
and 5% also in 2026, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, you got it.
Or you like that February 1?
I love February, you know, it's Valentine's Day, love letters, everything else, you know.
January usage. So.
Sure, past always catches up to you.
Yeah.
People don't really realize about December when I was traveling, but people will be all upset and would actually hammer me out in the. You know, you don't even think about it, you know, mom and dad come home, the kids are home every day, all day in the coldest months. Watching TV, playing games, you know, aunt and uncles come spend a couple days, a weekend, you got all those Christmas lights on. You don't really realize that. You just goes up.
for Christmas.
Yeah, you just, but
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good, you know, but the usage is there. The kid at home for a couple weeks and
Good point.
as soon as January comes around, they're back in the school and that goes back down. And no, that's kind of how it all happens.
So we wanted to talk about a couple different options for designing the rates. What typically what the process here is, right? We all talk as a group is like, what is our revenue requirement? Do we need $2.5 million, $2 million? And then we come up with a percentage and then hand it over to me and I figure out how we're going to implement it with the basic charge and the energy rates, and the demand rates, and all of that. How do we spread it across all the different customer classes? We saw this chart earlier, but I just wanted to open with this just to show, all of this is going to be focused on 6% in April. So because that was our recommendation, we kind of built a lot of proposals around that. So keep that in mind, but this is again, where we stand for an average residential bill compared to all the other utilities in the county. So a couple of reminders, those of you who have been here before, this is a really, you know, it's a real kind of standard process that we go through, right? The board, through its strategic plan from a couple of years ago, put some guidelines around how we go about designing rates. Irrigation rates should increase a little faster than others because they're being undercharged compared to everybody else. We want the basic charge to get closer to the cost of actual service. And so we had a target set for that. We don't want to increase any one sector more than 10% in a year, and the rate schedule should reflect 100% of the cost of service. So we don't want to cross subsidize as best we can. We developed two different scenarios, one with a higher basic charge, one with a lower basic charge. We continued the multiple meter discount, so that was fully implemented over a 2-year period. But that margin for that discount is still in there, but it's just increasing with everybody else, right? So now we're going to look at that again in next year's COSA. A COSA is our cost of service assessment. We do them every 5 to 6 years. And that's due to be done next year. And so we're going to look at that discount again next year closely to see if it's at the right level. I'm sure we'll continue it, but we just want to make sure it's at the right amounts. Another thing that we're considering, you know, power costs are a big component of this increase. It's 2% of the overall increase. And so should we put more emphasis on the demand and the energy rates compared to the basic charge? That's just one thing that we were thinking about when putting this together. This is the trend for basic charges. We've made a ton of progress here, getting this closer to what the target is. And back in 15 years ago, it was $10, and right now we're looking at everybody's paying $39 in 2025, and we're going to probably be over $40 next year for our basic charge.
So is that different than the meter charge?
Yeah, meter charge, basic charge. Yeah, it's kind of the flat rate that everybody pays to cover all of our fixed costs here at the utility.
But see, that's always bothered me because there's the technology in there that totally rearranged that. You no longer have people going out reading meters.
Oh, sure, right. Yeah, we've saved a lot of money there.
Technology on there, but yet the rate just keeps going
Well,
up.
that's why we don't call it a meter charge, because it's really the fixed cost of the utility. Yeah,
Yeah.
all kinds of different things.
The cost of the utility that don't change based on the volume that we sell, right? Like,
Well, I was just thinking of savings too. Like, once you solve all those, other huge savings on your labor, everything else got wrong.
Yeah.
I always wish I could work.
Yeah, unfortunately, our cost structure.
We've had these meetings over the years and the technology's changing. I'm like pushing, I want to see the savings. I never see it. I just see it as free fall.
yeah.
So all the stuff you talk about, And we do, oh yeah, you're doing really well, but you don't see it like it's a value to what we said, okay,
Yeah.
spend the money for this.
Yeah,
Well, it proves to me that it was worth it.
Right.
there are examples of that. It gets
I
complicated.
talked to you before about.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah,
things here.
yeah,
How do we make money on it?
yeah.
We're not supposed to make money, nonprofit.
Nonprofit. So this is what those two basic charge proposals are. So we've got two scenarios. I'm just gonna call it low basic charge and high basic charge. I get confused on when I actually name them scenario 1 and 2, but the low basic charge, we're gonna propose to increase it by $3 for the base residential customer. And what happens to everybody else, all the general service customers, irrigators, the industrials, everybody just kind of increases proportionally by that percentage amount. So 7.7%. In the low basic charge, everybody else kind of goes up by about that amount. In the other scenario, it's a $6 basic charge increase, so it's much higher. So that would take us to $42 in the low basic charge scenario. And I just wanted to compare what the target was in the last COSA here. So the target is $45 for next year in the 2020 COSA. So we're getting really, really close to that. We're like within 10% of that target under this scenario. The others they kind of move around. Like, I think we tend to focus much more on the residential basic charge because the volume of that number of customers is so high. It's a huge portion of our fixed costs, and we focus more on that. On the $6 option, the higher basic charge, we're there. Yay, we made it. So it was a long road, but this is probably the last year of this COSA cycle. And we were kind of get to that final amount.
Yeah, if I remember right, for the last 6 years or so, we've been talking about how far off we are on the basic charge.
It's been a process.
And that was one of our goals, is to get to this $45 level.
Yeah.
And that's why we had such a big jump for so many years in a row. And so, I'm glad we're getting closer.
We're getting close.
It's gonna take some pressure off
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were a lot of years we didn't do rate increases, as we saw in that one
Yeah.
chart, so we weren't able to make progress on this.
Yeah, and you can see like there were a couple of really big years in that kind of 2015 to 2020 was a big jump. And a lot of years, what we've done is we've tried to just load up the overall rate increase as much as possible into the basic charge to make this progress.
So if we jump to that $45 base charge, going forward, then at that rate, they would only see very small increases to their base rate versus that
That's true.
$2 or $3, $6 jump,
Yeah, it would be much more kind of
more like $1 or something. Yeah.
right. It would be like we've hopefully, we would go through this process to analyze the cost of service next year, and it comes back with a really similar conclusion. We've kind of we've met our target for that, and right, going forward, it would just be kind of CPI based or something, right? It would just be to meet the inflation pressures overall. I hope so.
Go back to your back chart there, when in 2010
Mhm.
and 2015, we jumped up, it's almost like $1 a year. Now you're jumping up $4 in 1 year. So how that's
Right.
all of a sudden break apart.
Yeah.
Went almost 15
I
years.
think we went 4 years,
Okay.
$4 last year.
Get up to the other chart.
Right. We went $4 from 24 to 25.
And all of a sudden we made a huge
Yeah, it's about,
jump in 1 year.
$2 a year for the first.
yeah, $2 a year for the first couple.
About the same for the next 10.
It's a little funny because we skip, there's gaps between the years, but we tried to
It's only
be
moving a year at a time.
relatively consistent.
Yeah.
Commercial and industrial, and Robin speaking of, I had a question. Is there a so much bigger? What's the reason behind that?
I think they start from a bigger place.
Like 60% jump on one of them.
This one right here.
Yeah.
This is just comparing what the target was for them for their basic charge and this kind of analysis that we do to where they're at today. So there's a bigger gap between what we're collecting on the basic charge and the commercial industrial customers. These are small numbers for these accounts anyway. I'm comparing, this is the kind of the big commercial customer and the industrial customer. I mean, this is what, less than 0.5% of, or less than, I mean, it's really, really tiny percentage of.
And there's only 6 customers that are in that class, so.
A lot of utilities will have much higher basic charges for large industrial customers. For some reason, this is just kind of the way we do things here, but
So
I do.
just gonna give, we do a rate increase, plus that.
No, this is part of the rate increase.
This is the rate increase.
This would be part of
This is how we implement the,
This is the rate increase.
every year, it's how do we implement the rate increase? There's a couple options.
Okay.
We like to do, we update this whenever we come up with these scenarios. This shows a lot of different utilities, not just the local guys. You can kind of see, the local guys are on here too, EWEB and Pacificor, and the IOUs tend to kind of artificially depress their basic charge and just really load up a lot of their other rates. But you can see we're getting closer to the top here, along with the other utilities that have adopted really similar strategies as us to collect as much of the fixed cost of operating these utility from our basic charge.
So say if 5% rate increase, part of that goes to your COSA. How is that reflected on the bill? Because your bill reflects a fixed amount
right
for your meter.
Yeah, it'll be there. You'll have, what is it called? It's not basic charge.
Electric system charge.
Your electric system charge will not be $39 next year. It'll be either $42 or $45. Or some other number that we come up with this beautiful scenario that we're working on right now.
So yeah, it's part of how we get the 5% increase in revenue.
It's not the only component, right? This is just the component that I think we tend to talk the most about, right? Depending on what we want to do with the basic charge, it impacts the other rates. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So we've got 2 other big rate components. We've got the energy rate and we've got the demand rate. And so depending on how much we want to collect from the basic charge, we have to change the amount that we're collecting with these other 2 rate components. So if you're collecting more from the rate, the basic charge, we're going to collect less from the energy rates, and we're going to and vice versa, right? So there's a real trade-off there. This is what the impact kind of looks like across the different sectors. So we try to really zero in on residential again. We want to limit them to whatever we decide the overall rate increase is going to be. This is the recommendation that we came in with 6%. So residential is going up by 6%. It's either the energy rate will go up either about 5% or 2%, depending on what we want to do with the basic charge. On the commercial side, it's either about 5% or 1.5%. On the energy rates, and they're going to go up a little bit higher than the residential customers, just because this is like we've been out of alignment on the commercial irrigators and the industrial sectors. We're just not, the residential guys are kind of cost subsidizing the others, so we tend to increase them a little bit faster than residential. Irrigators kind of had a similar sort of breakout on the energy rates. And then I want to highlight the demand components. We've definitely been increasing the demand rates faster than all the other components because we've been really behind on that one. And it's actually a much bigger component of our overall kind of power cost profile with the new Bonneville rates. So demand is, it's a little bit complicated, I guess, but it measures like how much a customer uses and it's the maximum amount in a month that a customer uses. And we get charged by Bonneville for that, and they're really, really increasing those rates. And so we want to make sure that we're kind of getting closer to what we're getting charged from BPA for that. We won't get all the way there with these 15 or 20% rate increases for demand, but we'll get a lot closer.
So if I'm trying to understand this, so
Yeah.
if a single customer uses a lot more than they get charged more per kilowatt?
Kilowatt, right? Yeah, so if they turn on, you know, a 1,000-watt light bulb for 30 minutes, that'll set their demand for that month. But if they turn it off after that 30 minutes, like they're gonna pay that one demand charge and very little usage, right? So that's, we have to build a system to kind of meet that maximum demand. Bonneville has to build have to have a hydro in reserve to meet that maximum demand. So it's becoming a much bigger deal in the region, the available capacity to meet that maximum demand in a month.
These other utilities in this regional basic charge justify their ability to cover the costs when they're so much lower. Because we're clear to the right.
Yeah, so their energy rates are higher than they should be. So look at Pacific Power, for instance.
Yeah, I understand that.
They're paying 14 cents a kilowatt hour, I think, for your energy rate. So you collect the money one way or the other, right? If you have a rate requirement. We've tried to bring balance to it by getting our basic charge up closer where it should be. Some utilities just say that's not something we want to do, and they put it on the energy rate. And so customers that use a lot of energy, if it's a cold winter, you're going to get hit a lot harder on that front.
So going back to my question, a 5%, say we use a 5% increase. So you're gonna show a $3 increase on the basic charge. And are you still gonna be charged 5% on your usage?
No, it'll be a slightly lower percentage increase on usage. I don't know what that number is because we built this around 6%, but what you can see here, $3 basic charge increase is about a 5% rate or energy rate increase. If you go to $6 per month basic charge increase, it's only about a 2.25% energy rate increase.
So when Rob,
So there's a trade-off.
Yeah, when Rob's putting these together, he's just trying to, how do we solve for 5% total rate increase between the two?
Right.
And then we give you some options on basic versus the other one. There's different ways to get there depending on how we want to do it.
I asked her.
Okay.
Yeah, these two tables just kind of give you the whole picture of what our current rates are in the left column, left boxes. And then the two different scenarios. This is the lower basic charge option, the higher basic charge option. Just looking at the higher basic charge, you can see the new basic charge would be $45 for 04. That's our kind of primary residential rate group. The O4A is the multiple meter group, Robert, and so they'll go up $6 also. They'll go to $31, but they'll have the $14 discount there that we decided is the cost savings for us. So we're passing that through.
We'll take another look at that next year too, when we do the COSA and see if that's still the right discount. It could be higher. We'll see when we get into that next year.
Isn't there something like an S group or just like anomalies?
Yeah, there's a small group in Springfield that we annexed from Sub a long time ago, and we kind of peg their rates to Sub's rates. So when Sub makes a rate change, we'll make a rate change. But I think there's about 30 customers left in that group.
To do that, it's me, Mike.
Yeah, it was part of the arrangement. We've got a long legal back and forth with them on that. So when we were the rightful heirs of being able to serve that area, we said for the customers that were already on Sub, we don't want to raise your rates, so we'll just keep you on Sub's rates moving forward. As they sell their house and move, then it changes to us. Just a legacy thing.
Nice people.
We're very nice.
Yeah,
So they happen to got run over by a utility truck or something like that.
yeah, we're not nice anymore. Yeah. Now they're
Past board.
that would EPUB. Yeah. I wanted to highlight the commercial demand rates here. They're getting close to $10, $9.62 in this scenario. So when I first started working with C&I customers back in 2006, I mean, I think these were $3.50. It was like $3.50, $4. It's gone up quite a bit, and that is definitely an industry trend to have that have that higher demand rate, which I know you love. I wanted to talk a little bit about like some design sensitivities here and just highlight that whenever, if you decide to put more of your rate increase into these volumetric rates like energy and demand, it's much more weather dependent, right? And so this chart shows what we thought usage was going to do this first half of the year and what it actually did. And in January, you can see like we totally missed it in January and February, right? So we're kind of wildly off, and because weather is so hard to predict. And so what we tend to do, what I tend to like to do is to design a rate that has a lot more predictability in the revenue. And that is done with just a higher basic charge. So I like these two charts that we have, again, the lower and the higher basic charge options. And this kind of splits out where your revenue is coming from. And the pie chart especially, I think, is helpful to show that in this scenario, the lower basic charge, much more of our revenue is coming from the energy charge and not the basic charge. So the orange pie is much bigger than this one, when we get much more of our required revenue from the basic charge instead of the energy charge. And so that just helps kind of stabilize our revenue through weather events. And so when we say we need $2.5 million in a rate increase, we're actually much more likely to get it when the weather is unpredictable. I think this has been helpful for me to kind of zero in more on this higher basic charge option as a recommendation, but definitely open to feedback.
The higher basic charge that actually is the cost of providing services, including the cost of electricity, just has an intrinsic fairness to me.
Yeah.
That it really, that each person is paying for your job, your work in getting the electricity to them, and then they get to, they can change the rate of use depending on, what they need.
Yeah.
But their change in rate of use isn't gonna have any impact on me, and I'm not paying for it.
They're
paying for me.
Right, they're paying for the poles and wires just like their neighbor.
That's the argument. And then you get somebody who puts solar on their house, and so their bill drops because they're not using any energy any longer, but they're also not paying a basic charge if it's not high enough. So you get these weird subsidies that happens if you don't get your basic charge where it should be.
It's a meter rental fee.
Yeah, well,
That's really what it is.
yeah, it's paying the cost of the system. If we sold not 1 kilowatt hour, we still have costs that we have to pay, and that charge gets us to be able to do that.
Also, it would really feel good to just put a little check mark next to, we met this goal, right? We met this goal of the 2020 cost of service assessment, and we got all the way to $45, but that's just me. I'm a completist.
It's definitely better for revenue stability. Yeah,
You're right. Just weather is unpredictable, but a basic charge is much more.
did you buy Sarah enough time?
Mhm.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
There it is.
Put it in there even?
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
Wow.
incredible.
They're called Bonnie's requests.
Yep.
You've got your own scenario.
Look at that. Your own.
Very nice.
Yeah.
No.
You pay pretty good.
Only.
Contact him.
Get your name on there one of these days. We could put your name on there one of these.
I wasn't 5 and 8.
Okay. We'll start naming these after people. So this is 5% level, February 1st start date on each year.
Each year, every year, February 1.
Okay. Okay.
George and Robert had one. 5% first year in April, 4 for the next 4 years.
You can't cover the next year's budget.
Hey. Now we try.
That's Friday.
Oh, I don't know.
That's, I mean, none of this is written in stone. It's a good point. We're not setting rates for 5 years here. So if 4% is the right number, we'll go with that. sometimes,
The April date is really the more palatable, and we're gonna get less calls. I think, with the rate increase, maybe go in April, maybe do it February or January.
We still get the calls in January and February. Because those people complain about the high bill anyhow, because they're using more electricity.
That's different.
Those are the regulars that complain every time. Exactly. They're not gonna change.
yeah.
That's what service still.
Think about it, they'll have the increase next January. Yeah, it's a timing issue.
Giving. That tells me that. We don't get it. When you're borrowing money, which doesn't make sense, you know.
Well,
Well, but you know, given the different categories and what you have to use it for, I mean, I don't know that it's leaving money on the table or not, but I think. Having the increases, the new revenue, keeping something about 5% or lower that somehow to me just kind of says.
okay,
You know, that they're managing things well. When you start getting above that. It's just it's sort of an emotional gut reaction that says, really, that's so much more than inflation or whatever else numbers out there.
yeah, and we're seeing a lot of utilities in that range. I mean, 6-7% is pretty common right now. You know, God help you if you're an IOU customer, but that's good feedback. Yeah.
It'd be good if we could do our part to just keep general inflation down a little bit. It's getting out of hand everywhere.
It would be real nice, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, there's many ways you can approach a recommendation. I think we can use some principles too. If you want to throw in a part about uniform inflationary increases, that's kind of been a cornerstone of this group. But if you want to put a number to that too, 4 to 5%, something like that, that's good feedback for the board to hear.
So, Sarah, just to make sure I understand, we're getting the increases in 26, 27 and on out there. If we're looking at a 5% increase as of January 1st, and this goes to the 2026 budget, does that meet the proposed budget needs?
A 5% January 1st.
February 1st. You were doing
Yeah.
4.5%, was the same as 6%.
Yeah. Yeah, February 1st it looks just fine.
Yep.
So that meets our current year, our 2026 budgetary needs.
It does. It'll be slightly less of an increase to cash reserves in 2026 than the 6% one.
Question. One, if we were to go to April 1, we would only take that $600,000 hit the first year that we did it. Because every year thereafter, it's always April, always, and we don't change back and forth every other year or every.
Yeah,
So once we
I
got
think,
there,
yeah,
we are, to her point, once we're there, we're making it a lot easier on everybody.
yeah.
And it's starting, I'm starting to be sold on that.
I think the temptation's always gonna be there to say, well, if we did it in January, we could, make an extra whatever else. So that it's always there.
There's 2 blocks south of Canal. You're 2 blocks, the other.
Yeah.
direction, You'd be in Pacific Power, not Uniform.
Yeah, yes, I know this.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, yeah, we feel for their customers. It's rough over there. So,
Which utilities did you say the legislature made?
so all the investor owned, so Pacific Power, PGE, we have mostly public power here, so it doesn't impact too much in Lane County, but the vast majority of the state is under PacifiCorp and PGE. They're now forbidden from doing an increase before April 1st.
Did you do it November 1st then?
I don't know. I'll figure out. They can stick to their custody.
But when you're talking about when this proposed increase, but. The one thing that I keep coming back to the January and February thing. If the ODOT bill goes through and double payroll taxes and all this stuff, and then we get.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're told probably to get significantly worse.
Yeah,
Because all that stuff hit at the same time, I think it'd be better to maybe go to a February, people kind of get away from that. But
it's a whole cost of living narrative that's happening in this state, and
Not get mixed up,
Yeah.
and it might be beneficial.
I agree.
Good point.
Do we need to reach some consensus now for your meeting next week?
Well, if you want to get out of here at a decent hour, probably should. Yeah, probably should try. All these are great thoughts. I mean, you can land anywhere here and we'd be okay, but
Well, I guess, but there could be proposals on the table and then have a vote.
sounds like the two big ones would be a February 1st start versus an April 1st. We can,
Are we set on a percentage, a 5%? Just need to decide on a start date?
I think
years.
Across the board?
So we have not.
we're trying to apply in that board.
Oh, okay. That's what I was asking.
I think we could do that. I mean, we could do 5% in April. It's a little tighter. So that was one of those scenarios we put on the board at the beginning. 6% would help build cash, 5% not as much. But if we did the uniform thing and we started doing 4 or 5% every year as opposed to like a 3, I think that gets us pretty close.
So what, if FEMA comes through,
Mhm.
it's an if,
Yeah,
how does that impact everything we're looking at?
it would make it beautiful.
Yeah, I think our operating cash is pretty well replenished at that point.
If we, so let's say you're expecting 9
Million.
million, they came through with, let's say, half of that.
Expecting is a strong word.
I know, but if we would cut that down to, let's say, 4 million that we got back.
Yeah.
How does that impact everything?
It helps. I mean, it's probably an all or nothing proposition, honestly. And I don't want to make it sound like it's hopeless. I mean, we still have an active claim. There's people talking about it, so it could happen. And there's an argument to say, well, why don't we go a little lighter on this rate increase to give it time to see if that plays out?
I'm just thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no,
it could happen.
timeline's unpredictable.
No.
We do,
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It not maybe not for this year, but we should use that as a consideration
Yeah.
down the road.
It's always on our mind.
Yeah.
Every night.
that's all gone.
You actually get.
Oh, we did actually.
Did,
Yeah, a little bit. Not a ton, but some.
$300,000 or $400,000 maybe.
Yeah.
Which is that for, Joe?
The COVID relief money, it took almost 5 years to make. I'm looking at about
Yeah.
We got it.
it. Good.
And does that FEMA money, when it comes back, if it comes back in, would it go back into the cash reserves, straight into the cash reserves, or does it go into other pots?
I mean, that's the scenario that we've talked about, is just replenishing our operating cash reserves. So cash is whatever it's going to be at our bank account, but we do break it out between operating and non-operating. And so we would propose the FEMA monies to go back into operating cash. It's their choice ultimately, yeah. We could spend it all on capital work, right? Or we could go buy a building or something, but in all likelihood, we would replenish our operating cash.
Well, let's figure out what we gotta vote on.
Oh,
Irene has something to say.
Irene's got her hand up real quick.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hi.
Most all of my list of questions, fortunately, you've all answered over time, but I'm glad somebody finally got to the FEMA question, because that's really been on my mind. Is this, so providing the government gets back in operation and FEMA services are still going to happen, then is that on any kind of a schedule or a queue, or is it just like a crapshoot when it comes through, or like, do you have any other information on that?
The only comparison we have is the 2019 snowstorm. We took about a year, I think, to get money.
Yeah.
We're getting close to that now in terms of when we submitted our final request. So, yeah.
Right. But they don't tell you, because when there's multiple disasters that happen in other places, and then everybody's getting in that queue. So they give you no notice other than you're just guesstimating from past payment.
I mean, there's the world of FEMA as it was, and there's a world of FEMA as it is today, and there's just different. So I think all claim at some risk. Ours was declared a major federal disaster, which is good. That gives us kind of some credibility on this that other areas haven't had. But before we see the money, I think all bets are off.
Right. So we're planning ahead as if that isn't happening.
Only
And
until-
then if it comes, then we can make some readjustments.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that's,
Okay.
I think to Rob's point, that's an argument that maybe shoot a little less on the rate increase if we think there's still a possibility of FEMA happening.
Uh-huh. And I know this, we've been through all these months and scenarios and all of that, but nobody's brought up March. And I don't know how everybody else feels, but when I make it to March and I make it through the winter, it's like, okay, I think we're gonna make it because spring is gonna come. And I know that kind of changes the scenario of, you know, reaping some harvest off of all that usage. But, you know, I just would like to throw that in the hopper as a possibility for, I would think, less customer pushback.
My birthday's in July, I like July.
Thanks, Irene.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's October.
Yeah, Alex.
Here to manage a rate increase in a quarter. Because, no,
It doesn't probably matter too much in terms of the like accounting or any of that. Yeah, we can deal with whatever.
We're flexible.
Well, to try to maybe pull all this together, I think 5% seems like that's a number that's been tossed around. We can live with that either April 1 or February 1 and probably be just fine. So if that's something that you all wanted to come to some conclusion on, I think that would work from a staff perspective.
Should we do a vote? Let's vote on that.
Yeah, you may want to add a little flavor in terms of the kind of uniform increases moving forward as well, that's important to you. Maybe leave that a little open to give us some time to analyze whether that's a 4% or a 5%.
I agree with Rob, but instead of going 3-5-3, just go 4-4-4.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable and we can make that work.
No matter which plan we choose.
Yeah. So then it's really just the date.
Well, then if we do it 4-4-4, then I think February needs to be the date. So that we think that up.
And your logic is?
So, thinking 4% increase rather than 6 for this coming year,
I'm hearing 5 for this year.
5 for this year, and
And then
And if we level it or whatever we do, it'd be more.
this one in particular, we're just getting hammered by BPA and it's a 3-year cycle. It's kind of an off cycle. So I think going forward, it'll be a lot more predictable.
I think it's nice to tell them, but we're sure gonna dictate what the world next year. We may be back to 6.
Well, yeah. We've tried to keep in mind the prior forecast when we put the budget together. I can't remember what we said last year. I think it was right around 5%. So the 6 is a little higher than we said last year. But that's because Bonneville hit us harder than we expected.
Yeah, the 5% always sticks in my mind. That's what we talked about last year.
5% works. I think it gives us.
on a particular line item on the page.
Oh, sure.
Page 39. Line item on the page, no, just one page.
Is that going up? Oh. That's not just me, by the way. That's like 4 people. So.
Nice and awkward.
Even I'm not dumb enough to put my salary on a different line item.
Yeah, that's just vehicle.
No, we got 4 people in that department, so it's not just me.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you flip back to page 55, there's even more detail about what's going on in that department. That's where the line by line detail is. So as an example, actually legal services, we're proposing to go down a little bit. So you're seeing the biggest increases in public agencies, which is adding for the new membership that I talked about
The new
earlier.
trade association that we're thinking of joining. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tends to be kind of a catch-all department too. So we throw a lot of things in there that
I love putting things in.
don't belong elsewhere.
What's the cost of the new inspection? Thing that you guys
We put about
Was it
Little-
125
little
or
under 200,
150?
yeah, 150-ish, I think, $1,000. So, and really what that is a more robust, safety inspection.
Sure.
So right now they go out and it's basically a visual thing. This will have them actually climbing things and doing more to take a look at what's on our poles.
The PUC's changed. They're a
Yeah.
completely different animal, a whole new group of people. Used to be retired linemen, look at basically the safety stuff, more of it. And it seems like every year they're just asking for more and more and more. We don't have, we just, we're used to a PUC of old, and now they're asking for more and more information. With that, we gotta glean it and gather it and have it in a data bank where we can run reports off it. We just don't have that right now. So our test and treat was about 150,000 a year. So now we're looking at, doubling or even more than that, trying to get the surveys and.
I was just wondering if that was something that could be pushed off another year, but it sounds like it's more of a liability and it's
It's a big focus for us. Yeah, it'd be tough.
Does that leave room for your video and your makeup artist and stuff?
Well, that's on I hide that in a different department.
PR.
This is my movie studio right here. Well, I just realized Wendy said we'd be done at 7:30, so we totally failed that. But open to a recommendation if y'all want to talk about the date or.
I recommend 5% starting April 1 with a higher base rate design.
I'll second that.
So I propose, I'm gonna put out there the February one.
We gotta vote on this one first, and if we lose, then we go federal.
Fine.
5% increase starting April 1 with a higher base rate.
Right.
Rate.
More basic. Yeah, $6 increase in the basic charge.
Yeah, it might be less than that with the 5%, but.
All in favor, say.
Come on, Sharon.
Oh, that's me.
That's you. Like it or not.
All in favor, say aye.
I say aye.
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 Let me count.
And opposed?
All in favor?
Wait,
Opposed?
hold on.
All-
Yeah, we want to.
Say what?
We'll do who.
Either way,
Okay.
iron it.
Be-
Opposed.
Opposed, that'd be a better way to do it probably.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 opposed.
Who are we? What about online?
Anybody online opposed to that?
Yes.
I am opposed.
Okay, Irene's.
I'm back.
Counting.
And is there a secondary we're happy to pass along to the board all this discussion and summarize it, but
There's for a secondary record.
is there,
Yeah, my secondary recommendation would be that we, same structure, but just a February.
Okay. Okay. We'll make sure.
What the board needs to hear is that in this committee that there was pretty strong agreement in
Yeah.
having level rate increases instead of the roller coaster.
Yeah.
But there was also strong opinions on the start date.
Yeah, we'll summarize all that and try to get that across. We'll help you do that, Carrie.
Consistency is key.
Yeah.
Have enough.
Well, I will say, so if we go with 5%, that'll be the 3rd year that we've done 5%. So whether that's the right number, I don't know, but it's consistent. So we'll try to keep that in mind, and we'll pass it to the board that you want consistent, regardless of what Bonneville's doing or anybody else. Let's try to keep that steady. And maybe it's 4%. That could be a number that we land on.
How wide your board is?
They've talked about that, and I think there was some concern that maybe it's unduly influenced.
Committees are made up of the board members.
Yeah.
And they're.
I think they feel like they get so much of that, in the boardroom. We go through this 3 or 4 times with them. They want this just to be your meeting and they don't want to influence your recommendation. So that's kind of been the history of that.
Yeah, go back and look at the history and you'll get a clear understanding of why.
That can go wrong if you're not careful. So
yeah,
to their credit, they really trust this group and they trust the recommendations that you make. And it means a difference, or it makes a difference to them when they're ultimately deciding what to do.
And Sarah, when you write up the
Recommendation?
what is gonna be presented to the board, and you have the 2 different scenarios, those both, will each one of those scenarios have a number attached to it on what, how much revenue that's gonna raise?
Ultimately, they will have to, because it does change the overall budget too.
Yeah.
Which usually we get a committee vote on the overall budget as well as the rate increase. Yeah.
The overall, what the rate
Yeah.
is not going to be, the number that's put out there for the overall budget.
Yeah. Just on the revenue side, though, we could have you do a vote on the expenditures side of the budget. That is what I forgot to put in here.
Yeah.
Usually I have
Motion.
a recommendation or motion slide.
Yeah, typically it's whatever the 60s, there's a, however,
The grand total
Grand total
on page
expenditures.
45, or no, wait. There's not a grand total including capital.
yeah, you can, often we do get specific about the dollars, but you could also just say recommend adopting the budget as proposed in,
Yeah.
in the document. Easy.
Second. There, you're up.
You have a motion and a second.
Set the budget. Not getting the storm out of the budget, is basically a little bit of, like it.
So, I say, we set the budget? So what you say, on favor, say aye. Yeah.
There we go. That's official for the record. Thank you.
Opposed the same? No opposed. Everybody said aye.
What about online? Is every?
Online, anybody opposed?
Look down.
No,
Okay,
Thank you for bearing with us on that one.
yeah. We did focus a lot more on the rate increase
Yeah.
tonight, but I think that's appropriate, given it was a little higher than normal, so. Well, thank you for your time. This is always a great meeting, and I think tonight especially, we got a lot of opinions aired, and that's helpful. We'll try to capture as much as we can in the recommendation, and usually we try to send that out to the group also and see if there's any feedback. So if we can get that out a few days before the board meeting, you all can review it, and if something doesn't look right to you, or if we didn't capture the gist of what you wanted to get across, please send us that feedback and we'll make sure to do it.
And Wendy, I do not have, I can't read doc text. So if you can send it out as a PDF.
Oh, yeah.
That would be very useful for me.
You bet. We'll do that.
You bet.
And of course, everybody's welcome to come next Tuesday to watch Carrie give the spiel. So, yeah. You can also Zoom it. Zoom is an option at all of our meetings. So if you want to just Zoom in, you can do that. 5 o'clock next Tuesday. Thank you all for a great discussion. Appreciate your service. I know this is a long evening, but it's always really beneficial. So thank you for coming and being part of this thing.
Yes.
thanks for all of your hard work.
Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
You.
Right, everyone online.
No, they don't do that.
I was thinking the same thing. I get to put a face to the voice on the other phone. Yeah. Oh, fine. I seen your name up there.
Updated my firmware.